One last thing before I put a cap on this, I just remembered I wanted to read a portion from a CNN article. This is from 2012, this CNN article. And here's what it has to say. On Sunday, a gay pride group planned to march past his father's church. I mean, Andy Stanley's father's, Charles Stanley's church. Leaders of the congregation warned in advance, dismissed church early to avoid contact with the group, but organizers of the march changed the schedule. Andy watched as First Baptist members filed out of the church and gawked at gay and lesbian marchers streaming by. Then he noticed a Methodist church across the street whose members held out cups of water for the marchers and signs that said, "Everybody welcome, come worship with us." "We are the church that sings Just As I Am after the sermon, and here we are shunning this group of people because of a lifestyle we disagreed with," he says now. Okay, this is from 2012. CNN. The seeds were there. That's what I'm saying. The seeds were there. Now, I don't know the full circumstance here, but I think it's worth noting that oftentimes you'll hear these stories of my church was super anti-homosexual and we treated them terribly. And so now we have to like overcompensate for that by making them feel so welcome that we now compromise our biblical stance. And I don't doubt that there are instances of this where you had a church in which there were people who said things that were intentionally offensive or hateful. I think that cuts in every direction. And certainly when it comes to something as abhorrent biblically as homosexuality, it is very possible that you'd have people who were insensitive in ways that Jesus would not have been. However, I have a healthy skepticism about this because a church the size of Charles Stanley's, if this story is true and they changed the time that they were going to let church out to try to avoid this, I don't know if any of you have ever seen one of these rallies, but oftentimes there are extremely evocative and provoking behaviors, sexually deviant behaviors meant to instill lust, to offend sensibilities. And you're letting a church out that has children in it included and women. And if they're going to be, the first thing if they see is this display in front of them, then it's not good for their souls. And so I could see a loving pastor trying to make a way, especially during this time period before 2012. How can we avoid this? How can we make sure that you're not seeing these things that will entice you towards sin? It doesn't say that in the article, but I'm just saying that would be a very logical thing. And I don't have any information either way. All I'm trying to give to you is that there's an assumption here. When you read an article like this, you automatically assume it's just bigotry. They just didn't want to welcome these people like the Methodists. Maybe there was another motive in this. And the Methodists saying, "Come on in and worship with us," that's actually wrong, like fundamentally. Sure, serving the community or serving the people at the march, I'm not going to say that that's wrong. I don't think it is. In fact, I think there's probably a way you can do that if you're careful that gives you evangelistic opportunity. But as soon as you include them in worship, Jesus didn't do that. Jesus, there's a principle in Scripture: God resists the proud, gives grace to the humble. And Jesus, when he sat down with the Gentiles and the tax gatherers and the prostitutes, they were repentant. They weren't people who were actively doing those things and advocating for doing those things. Jesus was with the repentant, with the sinners who knew that they were sinners. That is much different than a pride parade where they're trying to show off how unrepentant that they are. You don't tell sinners who are wearing their unrepentance on their sleeve to come in and worship with us. They can't worship. It will only condemn them, and it's cruel to do so. It pollutes your church, and it condemns them. It's a lose-lose. And maybe Charles Stanley had a little bit more sense than his son on this. That was in 2012, guys. That's the same compromise we're seeing now manifested in 2023, 11 years later. Same compromise. It's just further down the road.